Hello, ladies and gentlemen. You're listening to the Ruckus and the Menace podcast. I'm Menace the Menace, and happy Star Wars Day to everybody here, as today is May the 4th. And my co-host.
Ruckus. Um, by the way, let us know what your favorite Royal not uh Star Wars
Well, it could be
episode is.
pretty much your Star Wars, pretty much your favorite Star Wars type of thing, or even in the concept of sport, like your favorite Star Wars Day tradition for a team, whether it be minors or major league, because some of them even have it.
Also, let us know what your favorite Star Wars episode is.
Yeah, but Ruckus, what you kind of been up to? Because I know we've been off the air or off these waves for about a couple weeks.
Well, I'm glad you asked that. I went and played a lot of MLB The Show, maybe a little bit too much MLB The Show, but it seems
Wait,
like
there's
every
no
time.
such thing as too much.
Shh, shh. The I say that because every time I'm on Conquest, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go do something productive after this, and then I play another game, and then I play another game, and then I play another one, and then I'm just like, oh crap, it's like midnight. I should probably get to bed. We'll do one more. Other than that, I've been doing the show and just kind of following up with the draft. There was a lot of I watched the NFL draft to see who the Chiefs were looking at. I saw the debut of the Kansas City Royals Nike City Connect gear, which I picked up on MLBShop.com. Shout out MLB Shop. Not a sponsor. Had to put that out there. And other than that, not much. I heard. It sounds like you had a busy week as well.
Oh yeah, of which I've even put in parentheses in our notes. Sorry, quite a lot happened in this time away. But I think the main one of the main reasons why that was because this past this past few days ago was my birthday. So
Happy birthday, belated.
there was definitely a lot of things that happened. It started with pretty much live music. So I ended up going out to a concert about 30 minutes away. This one was a solo trip and it was worth it. And then after a few more days, I ended up going down to see my girlfriend for the weekend. Went and caught some live minor league baseball down in Lynchburg. Then went to Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. So we got to experience. I got to experience that area for the first time, including a a biscuit that is more addicting than the Red Lobster Cheddar Bay biscuits, and also a mini golf place where diabetes takes the wheel. Yeah, shout out to Paula Dean's Family Kitchen and Crave Golf Club. Not sponsored, but gotta mention those two in that same breath because it was definitely a fun trip. It was a
By
fun
the
trip,
way,
and then
what concert did you go to?
I went and saw Disciple on the Saturday before my birthday, and then just this past Sunday, I saw For King and Country and Dante Bowe with my girlfriend, as
Nice.
we also worked Dante's merch table. So I ended up picking up some swag as well. So there was some really good. It was a really great weekend, and I mean, quite a bit happened, but it was one of those type of things where yeah, a lot of fun. But then I've come back, I've messed around a little bit with some MLB The Show to kind of make up for some ground. Started up some Switch Sports and trying to get used to the spin curve on bowling because I grew up as one. So had to do it, and then just played some Star. And then on my Star Wars day, just played some Lego Star Wars Skywalker Saga. So, so I kind of took advantage and really got to enjoy that side of it. But now that we've kind of gotten a lot of where how we've been, kind of kind of along, Ruckus, go ahead and start out the weekly lineup.
All right, we are going to go starting off with the NBA playoff conference semis. Um, document series, and we'll talk about Draymond's flagrant 2, which was it a flagrant 2, or do you think it was a flagrant 1?
I really think it was a 1 because it looked like what they made it a flagrant 2 about was that it was alleged that he intentionally hit him in the face, hit the player in the face before grabbing his jersey and tugging him. That it looked a little bit more like an accident to the face, but
Yeah,
it still looked bad. It still looked
yeah.
bad.
He also looks like he's always hot-headed whenever something bad happens, and I feel like that also adds fuel to the fire. But he was already charged with it before all that happened, so it was more
I'm
just he was pissed off.
like I was surprised that he wasn't like if even with the even if it were a flagrant 1, I'm surprised he didn't get teed up for all the skipping he did.
Yeah, I don't know. He's one. It seems like he's a big character on the field when things don't go his way. He kind of like, not gonna lie, he kind of reminds me of Homer Simpson. If like
No!
like every time I see him on the screen, like his facial features and everything just remind me of Homer.
My God. Oh my. I
Except for
mean,
this, Homer goes to the gym and doesn't eat very many donuts.
or goes to the bar, drinks a lot of beer.
And his wife isn't named Marge. Anyways, the
Beside
NHL
the point
enters.
there. Well, hold up.
Sorry.
We got a document series here. Right now, the Phoenix Suns and Dallas Mavericks are playing in the semis, and that series is currently at 1-0 in favor of Phoenix. And 1 second here, I gotta look at gotta double check the score. And they just started the second quarter, where Phoenix is currently up by 6 as of talking about it. And
Yeah,
then the Miami Heat are up 2-0 on the Philadelphia 76ers in the Eastern Conference.
gotta love the process.
Huh. Especially when this process right now has James Harden involved. But
Luckily, he's in the semis and not the Nets.
yeah, but the two really, really good dogfight series are the other two matchups.
Golden State Warriors and the Grizzlies has been fun to
The
watch.
the Warriors and the Grizzlies have been fun to watch, especially Ja Morant just believing he can fly better than R. Kelly could.
Without all
And
the
then
lawsuits, but yeah, go on.
and then and then I think the series of the playoffs so far, the Celtics and the Bucks, that one is going to be really healthiest team wins, but I think this one could very well go 7.
It sure does look like it. I saw the. I only really caught a glimpse of the first game, but from what I could tell, the Celtics were on it that night compared to what
Oh,
the Bucks were like.
yeah. Or then it's like it's flipped, it's gone back and forth, and I think it will do that the entire way.
We will have to see.
But now that we've gone from one winter sport in its postseason, we now then switch over to another as now we go into the NHL. The NHL is currently in their first round of their playoffs, of which the current series are the St. Louis Blues and Minnesota Wild, the LA Kings and the Edmonton Oilers, the Boston Bruins and the Carolina Hurricanes, the Tampa Bay Lightning and the Toronto Maple Leafs, the Pittsburgh Penguins and the New York Rangers, the Washington Capitals and the Florida Panthers, the Nashville Predators and the Colorado Avalanche, and the Dallas Stars taking on the Calgary Flames. Most of these series are now in game 2, but St. Louis currently leads the series against the Wild, and the Kings right now take the lead in the series, are leading the series in Edmonton, with both of them currently playing right now as we speak. Carolina is up 2-0 on Boston, and Tampa Bay and Toronto are currently tied at 1. The games game 2's between Pittsburgh and New York, where Pittsburgh leads, Washington and Florida, where Washington leads, Colorado and Nashville, where Nashville trails Colorado, and Calgary and Dallas, where the Flames lead the Stars. They will alternate day by day throughout until series complete. But all of these are in best of 7. So if a team reaches four games, they advance. And we will find out, especially later on, who will be hoisting the prestigious Stanley Cup.
Or sleeping next to it. Drunkenly.
or drinking out of it.
Don't they normally drink like champagne out of it or something like that?
There are a lot of things that happen with that cup, because that cup, that prestigious cup, goes on its own little tour pretty much throughout the entire off season after it's won. So God knows what's happened to that cup.
So they clean it with Dawn dish soap afterwards, right?
I'm sure that this thing is very much disinfected well afterward.
Well, I would hope so.
Yeah. Especially because the NHL has to also etch in the new names into the cup.
Anyways, the first month of the MLB season has been completed. Personally, it doesn't feel like it's been a month because it was delayed as far as April 8th this year instead of starting on the 1st or literally the last day of March. I think it was a slow start as far as just in general, like how things are going. The players, for one, didn't have a full spring training like they were supposed to with the scheduling and how the lockout went. I also think the whole, to me, it seems like streaming platforms, like how I talked about a episode ago or two, when Bali was only on DirecTV Stream, which I eventually got DirecTV Stream just so I could watch it with my dad. But now, from the grapevine, I have heard that Sinclair Media, who owned Bali, is making their own streaming package where you could pay $20 a month just to stream Bali, which, in my opinion, is just stupid. They should just do it on YouTube and all those other streaming sites. But anyways, as far as the MLB season goes with like watching stuff, it's very divided. You have Peacock, which gets exclusive rights to a few games here and there from different things. You have Apple TV Plus that is getting the Friday night games, and it's like a round robin, kind of like how MLB Network does things.
And that presentation there is pretty darn good.
I haven't actually watched an Apple TV Plus game, but I also just don't know how to access it, like, as boomer as that sounds. But I just don't want to, like, had to pay extra for something that I already because like I don't pay for DirecTV Stream, but my family does. So like I don't want to have to add another extra cost to that just for
Oh,
one
and
game.
Apple TV Plus is, I will say this, it's only $5. It's only $5 a month. Side note, sidebar here. I'm gonna digress for a second. Ted Lasso on there. That alone made Apple TV Plus worth it.
Yeah, I just didn't I mean, I didn't know how much it was a month, but I was just kind of like, what's the point of like having Friday night baseball and having it once? It's kind of like Sunday night baseball for ESPN, but you actually pay like you have that as part of your cable package or whatever streaming
Yeah,
package you have
yeah,
as long as you have the sports package or whatever
yeah.
you get. But even then, like I feel like if I'm not like an Apple TV Plus subscriber and I literally just have YouTube TV and an internet package to watch that streamed content, like I would think less of Apple TV Plus, but that's just coming from me because I'm not a big Apple fan anymore like I used to be. But
Yeah, that
other than that, how do you feel about the first month of the MLB season?
for my personal take of the team, it's like for the Red Sox, it's like this is just par for the course. Sluggish April, which comes into a hot surge of May. I think the lack of the spring training in real sense is for the pitchers and catchers primarily. Position players, it's all secondary. It doesn't take much to get the doesn't take as much, I should say, to get the mechanics back. But for pitchers and catchers, it's about getting in sync. And a lot of that kind of comes along. The Mets right now are right now needing to stand up to bullies a little bit because they keep getting hit with pitches. But I think once you finally hit this stride of May and then June, it's gonna feel more like baseball as it truly is to be in form.
Yep, it's always usually a slow start to like baseball in general whenever it comes up in April because everybody's like you said everybody's trying to warm up and also it's usually pretty damn cold in April. I know it is currently cold where I live. It's like 40 50 degrees outside. It's also storming, but that's besides the point.
And then all the sports fans are either going to be focusing on the NBA playoffs or the NHL. So baseball is not going to get as much attention unless you are die hard into it.
And it also doesn't help that people are still in school, like kids are still in school, so they can't go to the games during the weekday until the summer when they're out and about.
True. True. So it's really like May and June are kind of those ultimate months where baseball is truly king. Though still you'll have the NBA finals and stuff like that kind of wrapping up, but the summer is where it's where it really takes its precedence. In a little bit more NFL news, DeAndre Hopkins will miss 6 games due to testing positive for a banned substance. And the Honey Badger has chosen not to care about Kansas City and goes back to the state of Louisiana and will be playing for the New Orleans Saints.
Fun fact about that, I watched a video from How About Those Chiefs, hashtag, or not hashtag, shout out to Cole DeRoos over at How About Those Chiefs. Watched the video where he was talking about how the Honey Badger possibly uh, worked a strategy on free agency where he so there's a rule about compensating draft picks before a certain deadline. So if
Yep,
you sign a contract after that deadline, then you don't have to give compensatory picks for like round 3 picks or whatnot for the
yep.
Honey Badger. So him and the New Orleans Saints signed the contract a day after that deadline. Fun fact.
Again, why do you think I eventually said Honey Badger don't care?
Yeah, like honestly, he never got like a actual contract or had talks about it really, as far as all that's concerned, according to the media. So I'm happy for him. He gets to go back to where he his hometown, and everybody, most of the people love him there. I don't know anybody that hates him. Maybe
Well,
a disgruntled Chiefs fan that didn't want to see him go, but it is what it is.
his alma mater's LSU, so
Right.
that kind of made some sense. And then Ruckus, we're kind of gonna go now to the near and dear. You just picked up one, so we already know your take here. The Royal City Connect uniforms. I think we're both in agreement here. It's we'd rock it.
Despite my bias as far as my favorite team and the team I was raised to watch as a kid, like if it wasn't like the City of Fountains thing and it was just like some lame like just Royals R with like the crown on it like they did for spring training a couple years back, or just something that just didn't vibe with like the city or like actually made any significance, I probably wouldn't have spent $160 on a Royal City Connect uniform. It was a Benintendi one, if anybody was curious. They sold out pretty quickly on the Perez one, which I was looking at, and the Mayfield one was still there, but the Benintendi one was up for grabs, so I was just like, I don't have a Benintendi, but I have a Mayfield and a Perez, so I did that, and then I got the hat. I love the design as a whole. It's pretty damn cool. The jersey idea was pretty cool. They have like the R on the left sleeve. You get the KC Fountain logo on the right chest. Yeah, like the right breast, and then on the collar, on the back of the collar, it says "Hey Hey Hey," which is like the main slogan for when they win the games, from this song "Kansas City" by various artists. And yeah, that's all I have to say about it.
I would have said if they had not gone with a theming of the City of Fountains, which granted Kauffman Stadium has the fountains, I I wouldn't have been surprised if they went back into like the Kansas City Monarchs and done that.
I was about to think about that. I was like, what else could they do that's iconic that like actually screams Kansas City baseball?
Yeah, the Monarchs, the Negro League team. And on it's like Miami going back to pretty much the Cuba, like the Cuban team of the Sugar Kings with their theming. That's where they would have went.
They
But
could
I
have
do
also
like
gone with the Kansas City A's as well. Don't forget about that.
one that the team that eventually no, because they wouldn't have gone like back to Oakland with that because I think they went to they were in Philly and then went to Oakland.
Yeah.
But that's just me.
Yeah.
And now, while we've looked at everything in the present, we're going to take this thing into a little bit of a further wayback machine. And all of these events that I will be speaking on here all happened on May the 4th of that particular year. Now, Ruckus, for this first one here, would you believe me if I had said that there was a time where baseball was not allowed to be played on Sunday?
That'd be a damn shame. It's almost like it kind of reminds me of Footloose, where it's illegal to dance.
Did
Just
you
putting it
really
out
just have
there.
to bust out the Kevin Bacon?
I didn't say specifically. I was just saying that whole storyline.
Yeah, but Footloose was a Kevin Bacon movie.
All right.
but
Cool.
but on this day in 1919, the first game, the first Sunday baseball game that was legally allowed to be done was played to an audience of 35,000 people as the Philadelphia Phillies beat the New York Giants 4-3. And as you can tell, this was before they relocated to San Fran. But Philadelphia sports on this day, as far as the Philadelphia Phillies, is far from done. On this day in 1973, the longest baseball game held in their former stadium, Veterans Stadium, was played as the Philadelphia Phillies defeated, at the time, I believe they were still in Milwaukee, in defeating the Braves 5-4 in 20 innings.
Fun fact about Veterans Stadium: it is now the parking lot of Citizens Bank Park. Am I right or am I right?
Or at least it's in the same. It's practically the same area. It's like they demoed it. They demoed it, and Citizens. And actually, I think, funny enough, that whole section contains Citizens Bank Park, Lincoln Financial Field, and the Wells Fargo Arena. That all three of them are built very, very close together. It's
Makes
not like
sense.
you have. It's not like you have one over here in this section, one over here in this section, and then one over here. No, they at least kept everything confined into one particular place, so that, okay, if you're going to go to all these events, you've got this section.
By the way, I found that out from 5 Point Vids. Shout out to you, my friend. Awesome content creator when it comes to history of stadiums from best to worst, and also future plans. Very interesting content. Anyways, let's go to the next one.
And this last one here happened in 2002. As a member of the San Francisco Giants, Barry Bonds hit his 400th career home run as a member of the team in orange and black. He became the first player to hit 400 homers with one team, and he had previously hit at least 100 with another. Now, if you know your baseball here, Ruckus, there was a reason why I did not put the name of the team that he played for previously on this. Do you know the other team?
I'm gonna feel really stupid, but the Seattle Mariners.
Nope. Bonds was never a teammate with Ken Griffey Jr. Bonds was previously a Pittsburgh Pirate.
That's right. I should have thought between him and Jose Batista, because Jose Batista was originally a Pirate, and then he was traded to the Royals.
Wait, Jose Bautista? You talk as in like Joey Bats?
Yes, sir.
Because I think I remember seeing him actually being I think he was in like an Oriole for a while too.
He was everywhere. Let's just get to the chase on that. But he was most famously known for being a Blue Jay.
He was most famously known for being a Blue Jay, yes.
I think he played for like 2 weeks as a Royal, or maybe a week, and then got switched.
He ventured around a lot in 2004. Notably, 2004, he was briefly in Baltimore. After 16 games with the Orioles, went to the Rays, and then 25 days later, the Kansas City Royals purchased him from Tampa Bay for 12 games. Then he played 13 games there before he got sent to the Mets on the deadline, who then traded him minutes later to the Pittsburgh Pirates.
There you go.
So he was played for 1, 2, 3, 4. He was around 4 teams. 4 teams, and had a very brief stint with a stint of all of like 5 seconds with a fifth in 2004.
Who'd you say?
And then
who'd you say? The Phillies?
What for Bautista?
Yeah, like the last part. I couldn't hear you very well. Sorry.
The Orioles, the Rays, the Royals. He was he was initially traded to the Mets from the Royals,
Mm-hmm.
but was sent to Pittsburgh minutes later.
Okay.
So that actually was a very interesting 2004 for Joey Bats. So Ruckus, why don't you go ahead and kick off the high heat? Throw that cheese.
All right. The NFL draft. We were talking about it earlier. Now we're gonna dive deep into it. We're gonna recap who you feel were winners and losers of the draft. Um, Also big moves made and notable picks, draft picks that were head scratchers and some that were just pretty much low key steals, if not just steals, and then who and just in general surprises. All right,
Yep.
so who are your winners, Menace?
I have a total of 3 winners that really stuck out to me. The Baltimore Ravens, and my losers will translate very well to the other half of this because the Ravens had a very solid early draft. The
Rip
Philadelphia
Hollywood
Eagles,
Browns.
yep, the Philadelphia Eagles, who really picked up a lot of steals. They definitely were a highly improved team because of the draft. And the wide receiver class, getting, and pretty much a lot of them, gonna say it best, pay that man their money. Pay these men their money. As first round picks tend to get a good amount of money compared to the rest, wide receivers were definitely big winners for the
Yeah,
NFL.
rip Jameson Williams emotions after getting drafted by the Lions. Every freaking photo there was of him on social media made him look like he was not happy.
Not amused. But I would not be very surprised if all of a sudden Detroit maybe goes into the quarterback market next year or tries to maybe make a subtle play for Baker Mayfield at the deadline. They'd be kind of one of those teams that would be most likely to do it after dealing with a suspension for Deshaun Watson.
We will have to see.
Yep. But Ruckus, who were some of your winners?
Um, this is really biased, like I said with the Royals. As far as the Chiefs, I think, as far as winners, I think going early into and trading up in the draft for Trent McDuffie was a good pick there with Trent McDuffie. I think he's going to shine. I mean, he's not going to do it overnight, but I think he's going to be a fan favorite coming soon next season. And the addition later on in round 2 with Brian Cook, ooh, that man is like on a whole nother level. He kind of reminds me of like early days Clay Matthews and just in general like what Nick Bolton did last season with the tackling he did and just this sure amount of assertiveness and aggressiveness he had at his position. That and we can't mention that without mentioning George Karlaftis, the edge rusher from Purdue, the Greek freak as they call him. As far as
I
losers, I would have to say, ooh, definitely, I would have to go with the Ravens as far as how they traded Hollywood Brown for a lesser known successful uh, wide receiver that hasn't even played a single game in the NFL.
I don't know if that's necessarily really an L though. I mean, you're trading away a number 1 wide receiver, but are the Ravens really throwing the ball to anybody other than Mark Andrews?
I mean, yeah, you got your point, but I also just think they could have done better as far as um, helping out Lamar Jackson because no matter what, Lamar Jackson was going to be pissed, no matter what happened.
Honestly, I am surprised that the Ravens are not running passing plays that are a little more West Coast because Lamar Jackson does not have as much arm strength to get the ball down the field as some of these other quarterbacks that have the ability to chuck it.
Why didn't he just get drafted as a running back? Because that's pretty much what he does on the
Isn't
field.
he already a running back? I mean, you could still throw like underneath, like there's still a lot of underneath stuff you could do. But
For the second pick in the 2017 NFL Draft, the Baltimore Ravens select Lamar Jackson, running back, Louisville. I don't know what round
I think
slash
it was
pick.
yeah, I think it was like around 132. I think it was like a very end of the draft.
Yikes!
But a couple of my other losers that I had were the quarterbacks in this class, but also two players who really have been turning up the heat on their teams to get dealt did not get dealt. And that was
Ye-
Baker Mayfield and Debo Samuel.
I honestly wasn't gonna be super surprised if Debo was getting traded on during the draft, but also he's more of a special kind of character because there was also rumors that him and Jimmy G would get like traded in like a package, but that still hasn't happened, and maybe it will in the future. Who knows? But
He's he's not big enough to be like his counterpart in Friday.
oh, you John Stamos.
I was talking like Debo from Friday.
Oh, I thought you
Like
were
Debo.
talking about like John Stamos. Like I was thinking of Full House.
Oh no, no. I said he was not big enough to be his counterpart from Friday.
Why was I
Debo.
thinking of John Stamos? Just ignore me. Just ignore me.
My
You are
God.
now listening to Menace uh podcast.
We're oh my goodness. Oh, we are now listening to Ruckus try and use John Stamos as an excuse to get out of losing a Friday reference.
we'll just we'll be right back after these messages. Technical difficulties.
Oh my. What the heck? Ruckus, where were we?
We were on Debo Samuel. Personally, I back to where we're supposed to be. I apologize. Anyways, I think it was no surprise either if he got traded or if he got just in general moved or just stayed with the 49ers. He still wants to be traded, but Lord knows how long it'll be till he gets picked up or sent away. That and then the same goes for Baker Mayfield. He is still not very well proven as far as a quarterback, as far as talent goes. Yes, he did go into the divisional round of the playoffs in 2021 or no 2020, and he did lose to Patrick Mahomes, but it was still a close game. And the same goes for the first game of the season with against the Chiefs. But they just got Deshaun Watson. But Lord knows what's going to happen with his legal problems.
Yeah, that's why I'm feeling like the situation with Baker Mayfield is a lot weirder and a lot more convoluted than what even we, the general public, are thinking.
Yeah, and
I mean,
the media, which is ironic because this is a media platform. I think it's a lot of attention that is stirred from like Bleacher Report and other places because like I saw a thing the other day where where Baker was on a podcast and he was talking about how he was treated, and it's just like, come on, bro.
yeah. I mean, I think Baker once I think if nothing gets formulated by the deadline, somewhere along the way, Deshaun Watson might get suspended. I think that's the ultimate reason why I think the Browns are hanging on to him.
Right. Which would be a smart move because then you would have someone that's like very well trusted in the system, even though right now it doesn't seem like it because they want to ship him. But they have a wide receiver in Amari Cooper, which fingers crossed he doesn't get arrested for something or do something wrong like we said earlier with Deandre Hopkins. Um, God knows what's going to happen because we've had Byron Pringle get arrested for driving a Hellcat and this, but yeah, we'll see what happens.
Okay. So now that we've kind of gone through some of the generic winners and losers, are there any picks that, or any trends and picks that were either of note, what made you scratch your head, or kind of feel like some steals throughout
Um,
throughout this whole thing?
as far as steals, I would have to say the late round was a big one, and I would have to say our getting an O lineman in Darian Kennard from Kentucky. That man looks lean and mean, man, with that beard and just his whole speech after getting drafted saying that he was pissed off that he didn't get picked in the first round. He is hungry.
Hmm. What makes this interesting? Wide receivers went like hotcakes in round one.
Oh yeah.
I mean, edge rushers too, but wide receivers were flying off the board. And it started right away when Atlanta took Drake London
We
at,
say pun intended as far as with AJ Brown, even though he was already in the NFL, but he got traded to the Eagles.
yeah, he was traded to the Eagles, which actually was a little bit of a shock too. But Tennessee, not necessarily solid for passing at the moment. I don't think they've been like a great passing team since McNair was there, but you start with Drake London, then Garrett Wilson going to the Jets. Washington trades down with New Orleans and passes on Chris Olave.
Chris
Jameson,
Olave.
Olave, yep. Jameson Williams to Detroit. But then Washington comes back at 16 and gets a receiver who I think has probably got some of the best hands in the draft in Jahan Dotson. I mean, and there's a lot of versatility that comes along with it. The Titans get Traylon Burks at 18, and then a receiver doesn't get taken for a while. But with a whole bunch of receivers and a lot of the top receivers going at within the first 18 picks, it led to a lot of players that we thought were going to be ranked or set as high or set high, maybe taking a lot more of a free fall than what we thought. And it's a lot of reaching and grasping kind of happened. Only one quarterback was taken in the first round, and his name was Kenny Pickett.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to clap and applaud my stupidity for thinking that he was going to go later in the rounds. Because to be honest, I thought it was going to be mainly defensive help and wide receivers, which it did end up being. But I was thinking more to the extreme of no quarterback being drafted in the first round. Because usually in the first round, there's at least one or two that are drafted. And there was a year where there was a huge draft class of quarterbacks, and
Yeah.
there was a whole media stir on that. But yeah, I was definitely wrong on Kenny Pickett. I wish good things for him. I was a bit surprised that he got picked as early as he did.
And it was interesting. I'm looking at this commentary here, and it says 39 years ago, the Steelers passed on Dan Marino. The reason, too close to home. Dan Marino had also played at Pitt. They
He
said he was
also
too close.
the pick that they got instead of Dan Marino ended up dying in a car accident his rookie year.
Yeah. But the Rooneys were still running the show, and they wouldn't pass on a Pittsburgh quarterback again. So
Where was
Pickett
Big
definitely,
Ben drafted then?
or where did Big Ben was drafted in 2004, but Big Ben went to Miami of Ohio.
Okay, there you go. I was wondering if like he was actually drafted, like if he was close to Pittsburgh, but
I mean,
anyways,
he was in Ohio,
yeah.
so not a long ways out. But I even think that Trayvon Walker from the Jaguars was a head scratcher. Derek Stingley going as high as he did was a little bit of a surprise. Um, a lot of the offensive tackles went early. So I mean, this made for a very interesting first round. But I'm going to look at a couple of interesting steals here. You had Kyle Hamilton go at 14. Washington could have very well gotten him at 11, but chose to trade down. So Baltimore takes advantage. And Kyle Hamilton, as far as the handshake game, it was actually his girlfriend that he did a handshake with. And I saw the video on it, and it looked clean. But we'll get into handshakes later. But some of those some of the other free falling players, Nakobe Dean going to Philadelphia in a later round. But I think a late round steal that it may not seem like it makes sense now, or it may seem like it makes sense in certain trends that the NFL has been doing, but it may make sense later, is actually Sam Howell to the Commanders.
Yeah, that's for sure because the Commanders don't really have a steady quarterback. Like Taylor Heineke was their quarterback for the past 2 years, but he isn't like necessarily like a Tom Brady or a Pat Mahomes, and neither is Carson Wentz. Which I'm still scratching my head at the fact that the Commanders, with all the scandals and other crap that's going on in their organization, they had the money, quote unquote, to go and get Carson Wentz and try and see if he's worth what they got. To me, this feels like a flashback to Robert Griffin III as far as health wise goes and just talent in general.
Or should we say just RG knee?
Yeah, like no kidding. Um,
But
this does add flexibility to the quarterback room in Washington.
but here's where I was also saying a trend. Have you noticed how certain college quarterbacks in college are also being able to be paired with receivers? Have you noticed that?
Yes.
Burrow and Chase, Tagovailoa and Jalen Waddle. We just had during the draft Kyler Murray and Hollywood Brown. Now this
Uh, Also Derek Carr and Devontae Adams.
the Adams. Yep, Derek Carr and Devontae Adams. That's another one. But how about this? Sam Howell and Deami Brown from North Carolina.
There you go.
But what I like about this Sam Howell pick is just in case this Carson Wentz thing goes left, Sam Howell could step in. Just in case this whole quarterback thing that they tried to do goes left, they've got something that they can settle in and try and develop. And Sam Howell can move. So this really works out very, very well. And I like where this is and I like where it's going.
All right.
And
Are you ready for the next one, or we got more?
yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, we basically I think we kind of touted a lot of the last portion of it. So now we can really make a transition down to the next section, which is the simulation.
All right. So, a new program was started for MLB The Show called the Spring Cleanup. The one before it was Face of the Franchise, but this one is now called Spring Cleanup. And there were a lot of cards involved. 5 bosses of David Justice, who was an outfielder and also known for his speed. Eddie Matthews, Tom Seaver, very well known veteran pitcher. Ernie Banks, and Zach Britton.
Yep. I have not gotten very far in this program, but definitely tomorrow for me. Cinco de Mayo is going to be Cinco de Baseball, and I will be grinding a little heavier on that, as I'm a few days behind, but neither here nor there.
I might try to get me a strawberry margarita at some point tomorrow. We'll see. As we were recording this is Wednesday, by the way, for people listening in the future.
Yeah. Yeah, I already know that I'm getting me. My plan is definitely going to be getting me at least some sort of taco-related product.
Also, get some mayo, if you're American and not cultured, you could just think of DeMayo instead of mayo.
Get out. Get out! That was trash! That was like the dog water you throw online and playing MLB The Show.
To anyone whom I am offended just now, I am semi sorry. I thought it was a dumb little joke to add on into there. Anyways, let's get into the war room.
Okay.
Before you put me at the stake, if you haven't already.
Okay, so this week's war room is going to be another team builder. And it is a roulette team builder because we will be building teams based off of an NFL wheel spinner. We did all of the wheel spinning in pre-production so that we saved a lot of time because we already had a lot of things going on. We've already had a few times where this has gone completely off the rails. So it's a good thing that we're going to save you guys some time. Each of us will be drafting 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, a tight end, 1 year's unit of an offensive line, 1 year's unit of a defensive line, 2 linebackers, 2 cornerbacks, 2 safeties, a kicker, a punter, and a special teamer, and all-time players were used in setting the lineup.
You ready for me to start with my lineup?
So, the first round. Oh, we're going to do this by round here.
Okay.
The first round. We spun the wheel, and it ended up coming up as the New York Giants.
I picked the defensive line of the 2007 New York Giants, which ended up winning the Super Bowl that year.
Yeah, that considers like a very solid defensive line. So you basically, with that, you got Michael Strahan, Osi Umenyiora, and Justin Tuck in that defensive line.
Yes, sir.
However, I took pretty much the best defensive player off the board pretty much as soon as I knew that the New York Giants were there. I looked right away and saw Lawrence Taylor, the original LT, and I took him pretty much right off the board. as soon as you kind of saw that there. But for the Giants, if offense was going to be more of your thing, this was where maybe a Tiki Barber or
Eli Manning.
and Eli would be an interesting pick here. Maybe if you're going like a cheaper route with Amani Toomer, kind of those type of things. I mean, maybe not as many offensive options, but there were definitely a lot of defensive options that would have been very well solid there for the New York Giants.
All right, do we want to go to the next one?
So the next round, we kept it at the Meadowlands, and the wheels spun right back and said the New York Jets.
And for that, I took the cornerback, Mr. Darrell Revis, who, fun fact, played for the Chiefs near the end of his career. But yes, he is a proven corner, and I figured I would go with my defense first to start off my lineup.
Now, if I would have solidly went with a running back here, some other options I considered were Curtis Martin, Wayne Corbett. But I also took a person who was a corner and had a brief time in New York. But his brief time in New York was also highly productive. I took Ty Law. I also went corner and took Ty Law as my pick. There were also other defensive players that could have been considered. I mean, Bart Scott, Jamal Adams. Jamal Adams would have been in consideration. But I took a shutdown corner that is a Hall of Famer or worthy of a Hall of Fame spot.
All right, so round 3 was the Dallas Cowboys, and
there were so many options also that we could have taken.
I picked the I pretty much picked the basic Starbucks item that someone would order in CD Lamb. I'm not saying that as a discount to CD. I'm not trying to diss CD, but that was probably like if you're a just general fan of the NFL and you were thinking Cowboys, I thought CD Lamb because he was a pretty good wide receiver as far as how long he has been in the NFL. He's only been in the NFL for like a couple of years, and he's proven it.
This baffles me. This baffles me on multiple levels. And here's why. You had Michael Irvin. You had Des Bryant. If you change positions a little bit, you had Emmitt Smith. You had Troy Aikman.
I told you it's a basic ass pick.
We both passed up on prime time. We both passed up on prime time. And you take CD Lamb. This is like taking Sam Bowie in the 1984 draft, Ruckus.
This is like the Bears taking Mitchell Trubisky instead of Patrick Mahomes.
Not exactly. I mean, Mitchell Trubisky had a brief time where he panned out. Very brief, but
Super Bowl MVP, 2019 NFL MVP. I'm just rubbing salt into the wound. Maybe a little bit of lead, but anyways. Round 4.
But I haven't even made my round. I haven't even unveiled my round 3 pick yet.
How rude of me. Go ahead.
I took the Cowboys offensive line from the mid 90s in particularly 1995 when they also had Larry Allen involved. So I took So I basically took an offensive line that basically was paving holes for Emmitt Smith and keeping Troy Aikman upright. So as much as I would have loved to have grabbed another offensive line, this I really wanted to focus on that because there are certain teams that we would have had later that offensive lines would have been shaky. But we go right into another NFC East team, and we take my team in round 4 with the Washington Commanders. With
And
this and with
go
this,
ahead.
we also had to include any members of the Redskins or the Washington football team.
Correct.
As that was where it stemmed.
Um, Speaking of O-line, I picked because I was looking hard for like decent players that played for the Redskins football team and the Commanders. At first, I was thinking Adrian Pearson, but that would have been a joke. No
That
offense to Peterson.
well, well, here's the thing. That actually would not technically have been a bad pick.
Um, but anyways, I decided to protect my quarterback, as later on you will understand. You'll probably not be surprised, but I picked the Hogs O-line from 1982.
Yep. Which, had I not done what I did in the last round, that was actually a direction I was looking into had I not picked the Cowboys line.
I just had to pick CD.
Yeah, well, you had to pick you had to pick CD, but here's the thing. Here were a few options that I was looking into at that particular point. Wide receiver, I had Art Monk in the look. At corner, I could have went with Darryl Green. Safety, I could have went Sean Taylor. Kicker, I could have went Mark Mosley. But I went and I took, and I'm surprised I didn't also think of this because he was also a Jet. I went with the power back in my setup, and I took Riggo, John Riggins here for my round 4 pick. And yeah, I could have even taken Clinton Portis here for all we know. But I took John Riggins. I took the big power back that even into his 30s was still running the ball well for Washington.
All right, let's keep moving forward. Should we speed this up a little bit?
We should. Well, I mean, we're still kind of going through, and it's like as if we're taking it. So it's like we're kind of rolling along. This is going to be a long episode anyway.
All
I'm
right.
not worried. So
Okay.
round 5 was the Detroit Lions.
And my pick of choice, since he's probably the most bad man on the planet, playing on one of the worst teams in the NFL. Calvin Johnson, round 5, Megatron.
And this was the point where I looked at you and I said, "You sly devil," because there was really only one other player that I would have looked into at that point, other than Calvin Johnson, and with you probably needing some help at running back at a certain point, I looked and I said, "You have got to be kidding me."
Welcome.
You left me Barry Sanders, of which I exhausted my running backs early, but I ended up getting both a speed back and a power back, all in the same grand scheme of it. Round 6, we went with the Raiders.
And as a Kansas City native, I couldn't just not pick this one. So the running back, I picked Bo Jackson, a outfielder for the Kansas City Royals, but also a running back for the Oakland Raiders before they went to Vegas.
And this was where also you had, especially as far as running backs go, you also had the option of Marcus Allen, but take Bo.
That was okay.
Yeah, but Bo, you take the biggest glitch in all the Tecmo Bowl. I look and I like, okay, there are not many people who are going to have like a big identity when it comes to punters. I looked up. Yeah. So I looked up. So I looked up to make sure I knew. So I did a little bit of research to double check where this guy played for. Of course, interesting guy in this point. I took Ray Guy, the Pro Football Hall of Fame punter for the Raiders.
Right.
And I mean, the guy has a college football award named after him to recognize punters. So why not go with an all timer and kind of the greatest punter of all time and select Ray Guy?
Makes a lot of sense. Whenever I first heard you talking about punters, though, I thought you were going to do Mark King, the undrafted punter that eventually played for the Raiders, that could,
Yeah.
like, punt nukes. Um, as far as round 7, so round 7 was,
The Titans.
and I picked. Good lord, who did I pick? I picked
You
Steven Gostkowski, the kicker. He wasn't in his prime, but he's still one of the greater kickers in the league besides Adam Vinatieri and Matt Prater and many other honorable mentions like Ryan Suckup.
and I am going I also went with a kicker this round because a lot of the options I could have had for the Titans were a little lacking. At linebacker, I could have gotten Bullock. I could have gone Michael Griffin. I could have gone one of the Griffins for. I could have even went with Jason McCourty for a safety. I could have went with Cortland Finnegan for a corner. I mean, I ran out of running backs too early, so Derrick Henry was off the board. Eddie George was off the board. I didn't necessarily want to go for Steve McNair at quarterback, so I took a kicker who has the NFL record for most field goals made in a game with 8. I took Rob Baronis.
And when you were trying to get me to go for Derrick Henry, I was like, Derrick Henry's a little overrated, not gonna lie.
Well, but then I also would have lobbied you toward Eddie George. I was contemplating the tight end with Frank Wycheck here. I mean, there were a few options I could have went to, but I'm glad that I took Baronis here. And it felt weird to take a kicker, but we both took a kicker that round.
Oh yeah.
Round 8 was the Denver Broncos.
And you know how I love my Shannon Sharp when he goes ski up in the Skip and Shannon show. But also in general, I love the little old clips he had from back when he was playing as a Bronco. But anywho, if you didn't know Shannon Sharp, he was a tight end for the Denver Broncos. And I decided I'm gonna I'm not gonna take up this chance ever again, so I might as well just get Shannon Sharp. Because then I could yell Skip at your team the whole time, even though Skip it wasn't even playing on your team.
And this was where I ended up with way too many options. I was out of running backs, but Terrell Davis would have been considered. I had Elway as a potential. I had Champ Bailey. I could have even had Champ Bailey in round 4, as he was also previously a member of in Commander's lore. I had Broad Smith in consideration. But as soon as he took Shannon Sharp, I had to go and I'm like, where can I snag something that is worthwhile? This was where I took a safety. I took Steve Atwater here as safety for the Broncos and also played for the Jets too. So I could have gotten him sooner, but I also had a chance something that I eventually got later and was kind of glad that I got him too. We'll find out here in a few more rounds. Round 9 was the Buffalo Bills.
And I kind of picked a cheap pick, I would say, because this man hasn't even played a down for the Buffalo Bills yet, but I already had my my Denver pick taken, so I picked a linebacker in Von Miller. He's well known. He's won 2 Super Bowls, and he could win another with the Buffalo Bills. That's if Patrick Mahomes doesn't stop him, though.
I mean, so Von Miller was a solid pick. But this was another one that you also could have gotten him a round ago at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And still had your tight end, and still would have had your tight end. Or still would have been able to grab your tight end later because of another round and another team that Shannon Sharp played for. So it's like you could have
Skip.
But for me, I went and I took a special teamer and I took Steve Tasker of Buffalo Bills lore because I'm like, there's not many teams that are going to have like a solid special teamer somewhere in their history. There's some, but I'm like, okay, I missed my opportunity at getting Dave Casper. I missed an opportunity at getting the Ghost. So I got to grab this guy. Or else I'm going to have trouble finding a special teamer later. Round 10 was the Rams. And this was another point where you probably could have also waited on Von Miller as well, because Von Miller was also just a Ram.
I try to keep it coy when it comes to my picks. I'm not trying to like go big or go home on one and then be like, oh crap on another. So, which in your opinion probably would have been that exact reason. But anyways, at cornerback, I have a bad Mama Jamma duo with Jalen Ramsey and Darrelle Revis now. But Jalen Ramsey is my pick from the St. Louis Rams.
Yeah, I looked at that and I was like, I was very much thinking that way. But again, this was another situation where I was super mad that I blew through my running backs too quickly. Because Marshall Faulk was on the board. Still on the board. I was trying to goad you into taking Marshall Faulk here. because Marshall Faulk was solid. Marshall Faulk was you know how we have all these runner receivers now in the NFL? He was doing that before it became in vogue. But I went with another member of the greatest show on turf, Isaac Bruce. I took the number 1 receiver of that notable offense. In round 11, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
I picked linebacker Shaq Barrett to line up with my very outlandish defense that I have.
Again, here were a few things that I would have. There were a few things that were also on the board. I was also kind of wrestling around with this. Another one that I was that none of us have taken a quarterback yet. Tom Brady is on the board. This is the only time that Tom Brady could have been taken the whole time, and none of us did it. I could have completed my safeties and gotten John Lynch here, which then would have resorted me with a later round to eventually grab somebody who looked like Debo from Friday. If you know where I'm getting at there.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, I went and I took my linebacker here because I totally thought he was going to take this linebacker from me. And had you taken this linebacker from me, I probably would have went and gotten John Lynch. And that is Derek Brooks. I took Derek Brooks here. Another notable defensive player from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the late 90s and early 2000s. And then the next one was the next round 12, the Indianapolis Colts.
And with that round 12 pick in the non-official NFL all-time draft, I picked a punter out of the Indianapolis Colts in Pat McAfee. Not only because I love his podcast, but because he was also one hell of a punter.
And this was where I look at you and I was just, I'm like, are you serious? You blew through your receivers, so you couldn't go and grab Marvin Harrison.
Or Reggie Wayne.
Or Reggie Wayne, for that matter.
Or Pierre Garcon.
Yeah.
Or T.Y. Hilton.
Yeah. But I'm like, I'm looking at this, and the first thing I'm looking at is, oh crap. Like, oh crap. There are two quarterbacks in this franchise that would have been amazing grabs here. And they are Johnny Unitas and Peyton Manning. And I'm thinking, oh crap, he's going to grab Peyton here.
Nope.
As soon as you went and took Pat McAfee, I'm like, I'm putting it in on my favorite quarterback of all time, Peyton Manning.
Omaha. I especially like the Peyton and Eli show when they do Monday Night Football.
Oh, the funny thing is that I could have grabbed him 4 rounds earlier. Could have grabbed him 4 rounds earlier. Still would have ended up with John Lynch. Still would have ended up with Debo from Friday. And would have ended up being okay. The fact that Peyton Manning just falls right into my lap was more of a shock. And then the next round, we have the Baltimore Ravens. Again.
And so the Ravens, I went with safety with Ed Reed.
And this was where I looked at you and I said, you took the one pick that that I'm like, I wish you would not have taken that. Because at the time, you did not have a running back. You still had a running back open, so you still had Jamal Lewis. Yeah, you were out of receivers, you were out of your lines. You ran out of you took a linebacker already. So yeah, Ed Reed was kind of very much in that consideration.
Also, the Ravens have had bad habits recently of injuries with their running backs.
True. But had I not taken Derek Brooks here, I would have actually been in perfect position for Ray Lewis at this juncture. But we both were out of linebackers.
Yes, we were.
So I kind of went and I said, I'm just going to grab Mark Andrews here. The only modern player that I took in this whole draft was Mark Andrews. Actually, no, I also have one more, but
Lies.
actually, I have one more. I have one more, but I took that more out of robbery rather than, or out of self-preservation, because his other team was on the wheel still. But
Yeah.
in round 14, we had the Steelers.
And I could not take this one up any better. And what I did was I picked Le'Veon Bell because he was a freaking freight train against the Chiefs back whenever we faced them in the playoffs, and he was just a contender. Now he's just washed up. But hey, it is what it is.
And again, I look at you taking Le'Veon Bell, and I'm thinking, granted that at the time was what, where is this guy at? Because you had for running backs at that point, you had Franco. You left the boss on the board. You left the boss there. But here was where I was like, I had Lynn Swan, Antonio Brown, Hines Ward, all in my consideration, even Antoine Randall L, all in my consideration. But I also was looking at, I'm like, I need a safety. So I took Troy Polamalu.
Which was a really good pick, by the way. Head and Shoulders commercials for the win.
Yeah, that one just kind of stood head and shoulders above the rest. And now we get to round 15, where we ended up with Ruckus's team, the Kansas City Chiefs.
And spoiler alert, I picked Patrick Mahomes, I should say. His mom's gonna yell at me in the comments now. I picked Patrick Mahomes because of eventually, if the wheel spun on the Chiefs, I wanted Patrick Mahomes to have the best wide receiver and the second best wide receiver all time currently, and Shannon Sharp, and having the best offensive line of all time in the Washington Commanders Hogs O line, while also being having an awesome defense wrapped around him as well. But yeah, Patrick Mahomes. That's why I pretty much took a beeline, because when it came to any other quarterback in that class, you were probably like, "Huh? Why didn't you pick Peyton? Huh? Why didn't you do this guy?" Because I was just like simmering in the kitchen, just waiting for Patrick Mahomes
Like
and
you were
waiting for my
waiting,
Chiefs.
you were waiting for Mahomes to kind of come through along the board.
And it only took 20 minutes of us doing this whole drafting thing. this whole like spin the wheel just for me to get Patrick Mahomes.
And this was the point where I looked and I said, why did I order this in certain ways? Because had I not taken Mark Andrews in round 13, I would have known exactly where I was going. I would have taken Travis Kelce.
I kept
But
on trying to get you to do Marcus Peters as a cornerback too.
But I was like, but here was the thing. I knew that Miami was still sitting there. And I knew right away that I'm like, if you are even going to dare have that as an option, I need to take something away. I took away Tyreek Hill.
After all the quarterbacks that I gave you and other things, you're just like, no, I can't let this man have Tyreek.
I can't let you have Tyreek. I can't let you have. But here were some other things that you could that would have also been in consideration. Dante Hall as a special teamer, Priest Holmes or Larry Johnson as a running back.
I would have taken Priest Holmes instead of Larry Johnson, for the record.
And actually, here was the other funny thing. Kansas City had not just Travis Kelce as a tight end to go to. You also had Tony Gonzalez. So
Right.
Kansas City had at least two good tight ends to go to.
Could have also picked uh, Joe Montana as well.
I mean, Montana would have been an interesting option as well. That was viable. This was the
But
only time he could have gone off the board.
Patrick Mahomes,
Yeah.
best quarterback in the NFL currently, best young quarterback, I should say.
Yep.
A lot of Buccaneers fans would be mad at me if I said that because they're like, Tom Brady, you fool. I also passed up on him, so bite me.
Ugh. Round 16, we had the Cleveland Browns.
I was kind of trying to pull a fast one on you, Menace, and kind of is a strong word because I was really just trying to see how far I could stretch this. And I really wanted to pick Nick Chubb because he's a running back and he could technically be on special teams and receive the ball and run it for all the way to the end zone. But you were like, how about no? So you rejected it again, kind of like how you nabbed Tyreek from me. How could
Yeah,
you?
but really with then it's like Nick Chubb's primarily played offense.
But special teams is technically offense. You're like returning the ball. I mean, yes, you could like run into people, but come on, Madden would have let me do it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, Madden would have let you do it, but I would have even said that the option I gave you was a better option.
so with that,
Because so
I so with that pick, I took the from the Cleveland Browns, Josh Cribbs,
yeah,
because my man Spanis was like, "Yo, you should take him and not these other guys that you're looking up on Bleacher Report. What are you doing?"
yeah. Because here's the thing. You had in 2009, Josh Cribbs had 3 kickoff return touchdowns. He had 8 kickoff return touchdowns for Josh Cribbs. That is an NFL record. He still had an 84-yard punt return for touchdown, a 76-yard. So he ended up with a grand total of 11 touchdowns just from returns alone. He had the most kickoff return touchdowns, tied with Leon Washington and Cordarrelle Patterson. He has 2 kickoff returns of 100 yards or more in a single game. That was tied with Ted Ginn. Most kickoff returns in a single game. He had 2, and he was tied with 9 others for that. And those are all just his NFL records. So really Josh Cribbs, if you're talking like truly a special teamer, Josh Cribbs was probably going to be a better choice for you in the long run. I went and took Joe Hayden at corner because I knew that I wasn't going to get very much out of a Browns defensive line. And last but not least, we had the Minnesota Vikings.
At safety, I picked Paul Krause.
Yep, which that one kind of made sense. And then I took the Purple People Eaters defensive line from the 1969 loss of the Kansas City Chiefs to the Minnesota Vikings season. I took the Purple People Eaters because it was a well-known defensive line.
And fun fact, 1969 is when the Chiefs became a thing.
Well, that was when they won their first Super Bowl.
Right. Yeah, never mind.
So now that we've actually drafted these teams, I mean, we really can't put these guys truly in a Madden simulator because not enough of them are probably truly in the game. Plus, we're not needing to spend all that coin on Ultimate Team.
Also, I don't
Just to
really
do
play
that.
Ultimate Team, so
Yeah,
good
neither
luck
do
with
I.
that.
Neither do I. Neither do I, honestly. So we're gonna leave it at that. So,
All right,
Ruck,
we have now we go after War Room. We now go to our weekly stud and dud with the prognosticator's corner and the
well,
shutdown.
well, we don't really have anything prognostication wise to kind of go through. So it's just going to be weekly stud and dud.
All right.
So Ruckus,
So,
I'll let you go ahead and kick it off and start with your weekly stud and dud.
all right. Well, I've had this stud before, but I'm gonna say it again anyways because my man Bobby Witt Jr. hit his first home run last night. In the recording that we are doing now, it is now Wednesday. But Tuesday night, he hit his first home run, and he made it look like it was just a nice little line drive. This was no line drive. It was a dinger. I mean, it wasn't like a see you later, like no doubt, but it was a dinger nonetheless. Also, an honorable mention, MJ Melendez with his MLB debut for the Kansas City Royals after Cam Gallagher gets injured with a hamstring strain. MJ Melendez makes his mark and gets a hit in his first game, and then in his second game starts as a catcher.
Wait, so what are they doing with Salvi at that point?
Um, well, he mainly plays DH, so either that or catcher or first is usually what he plays. On MLB The Show, they have him as a first baseman, as a secondary position, but he mainly plays designated hitter if he's not playing catcher. To answer your question.
Yeah, so I was just making sure because we knew that MJ Melendez was also a catcher.
And before the recording, my dud was the Royals offense keeping the beers cold like their offense, because before Tuesday night they were cold, and during this recording Wednesday night the Royals lost 10-0 against the Cardinals. So they were pretty much keeping their beers cold.
All right, so a lot of mine actually came from the NFL draft. So my first stud that I kind of came along here was Ahmad Sauce Gardner. Not because of that nickname, but he made an accidental wrong turn going toward the stage look like the smoothest thing ever. Like
Not to mention
that.
his necklace too.
I mean, but unlike there's certain things where you're saying it's like, oh, there's no such thing as too much sauce. Yeah, there could be such thing as too much sauce, but I mean, the necklace was all secondary. But he made like an accidental wrong turn, going the wrong way, and just come around and just like, oh, he made that look like he meant to do that.
Hold up.
Wait. But my honorable mention goes to Malik Willis for actually how he handled not being a first round pick and kind of just his patience and waiting and kind of really more so in his tweeting, kind of like saying that God's plan, he'll go wherever he kind of ends up, and ends up being a second day pick to the Tennessee Titans, where he has already made himself not a fan to Ryan Tannehill, as Ryan Tannehill, like some of the other soured quarterback relations and turmoil, has resulted in him not being mentored by Ryan Tannehill. So it is what it is. That's football.
That is what it is.
But my dud here is Kayvon Thibodeau for trying to do a stupid and very, very confusing handshake with Commissioner Roger Goodell. There was Melvin Ingram who maybe did the unorthodox handshake with Roger Goodell, and it looked good. But this thing just looked sloppy. Like, it was terrible. And I even took that in the Charles Barkley pronunciation. And it's spelling it TRBL. Terrible.
Chuck.
Chuck, the Chuckster.
I love those Capital One commercials.
I mean, with Charles Barkley and Samuel L. Jackson, it was like they're talking about Indianapolis. But you are in the Maryland when you're actually in Annapolis.
That is for show. All right, you ready to close the pod, Mr. Spennis?
Yep, I think we're gonna be set to shut this thing down.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening to Ruckus and the Menace podcast, a weekly sports podcast. If you love this podcast a lot, leave a like and also subscribe if you want future podcast episodes whenever they come out. Also, let us know on Twitter what your thoughts are, and also follow us there for any news and retweets that we find on Twitter. Um, Other than that, anything else you have to say, Spennis?
Well, let's fire the handles.
All
I
right,
mean, we definitely got me at Spennis de Menace.
and at Ruckus Sports 97.
And in keeping in tune with Star Wars Day, may the fourth be with you.
And have a good Cinco de Mayo. Scratch that. Have an awesome Cinco de Mayo. Bye-bye.